The moment my laptop went dark, my mother laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an oh no kind of laugh. A soft, indulgent one, like she was watching her favorite movie character do something cute. My niece Sophie stood there, wide-eyed, clutching her juice box while purple liquid dripped through the keys of my laptop. My $3,800 laptop. The one I used to edit videos, meet deadlines, and pay my rent. The screen flickered, once then died. My father shrugged. "She's just a child," he said calmly. I stared at the ruined keyboard, my hands shaking, my chest tight. When I finally looked up and asked, carefully, politely, if they could help cover the cost, my mother tilted her head and frowned at me like I'd said something outrageous. "Emily, don't be ridiculous." That word hit harder than the silence that followed. Because in that moment, I understood something far worse than losing my laptop. I understood exactly where I ranked in my own family. I've always known my parents loved my niece more than me. They just never bothered to hide it. Sophie was their miracle, their joy, their second chance at parenting. That's what my mother liked to say, usually while brushing Sophie's hair or letting her climb onto the dining table without a single word of correction. Every laugh Sophie made was precious. Every mess she created was just a phase. "She's curious," my dad would say when Sophie dumped cereal all over the floor. "She's expressive," my mom would add when Sophie screamed in public places. And Laura, my older sister, soaked it all in. She never had to discipline her daughter because she didn't have to. If Sophie broke something, my parents blamed the object. If she crossed a boundary, they blamed the adult who had dared to set one. I was the adult who set boundaries. I was also the inconvenient reminder that not all children stayed adorable forever. I was 30, unmarried, working freelance as a video editor, something my parents still described as temporary, even though it paid my bills. "Emily works on her computer all day," my mother liked to say, like I was playing games instead of running a business. That laptop wasn't a hobby. It was my office, my income, my safety net. I'd moved back into my parents' house for a few weeks after my apartment flooded, and from the first night, I knew I had to protect my things. Sophie had already grabbed my phone once and dropped it into the dog's water bowl. Everyone left, so I locked my bedroom door. Every time. "Don't you think that's a little extreme?" my dad asked one morning. "No," I said. "I think it's necessary." My mother sighed like I was being dramatic. "You worry too much." Sophie wouldn't touch your things. But Sophie touched everything. She pulled books off shelves, yanked cords from outlets, pressed buttons just to see what would happen. And every single time, my parents smiled proudly, like destruction was a personality trait to be admired. I warned them, more than once. "Please don't let her go into my room," I said. "Please keep drinks away from my desk. Please watch her when she's near my laptop." They nodded. They agreed. They dismissed me. And I didn't realize it yet, but every time they did, they were choosing her comfort over my livelihood. I just didn't know how much that choice was about to cost me. That laptop wasn't just expensive. It was everything. I'd bought it after 2 straight years of saying no to vacations, no to new clothes, no to dinners out. A custom-built machine, fast processor, upgraded graphics card, extra cooling, because video editing didn't forgive weak hardware. When it lagged, my work lagged. When it crashed, my income disappeared. I edited commercials, wedding videos, YouTube content. Deadlines weren't suggestions. Miss one and clients didn't yell, they just quietly replaced you. My parents knew this. I had explained it more times than I could count. "This isn't a toy," I told them one night at dinner. "If anything happens to it, I can't work." My father nodded absently. Yes, we know." But knowing and respecting were two very different things. Sophie was fascinated by my setup. The glowing keyboard, the mouse lights, the headphones hanging from the desk. Every time she passed my door, she slowed down, staring like it was a candy store window. "She really likes your computer," my mother said fondly. "That's why my door stays locked," I replied. She gave me that look, the one that meant I was being difficult again. "You can't lock yourself away forever, Emily." "I'm not locking myself away," I said evenly. "I'm protecting my job." Laura rolled her eyes from across the table. "You act like Sophie is some kind of menace." "I act like she's a 5-year-old, I shot back. "Because she is." That didn't go over well. The next morning, I found Sophie sitting on my bed, bouncing on the mattress, my bedroom door wide open. My stomach dropped. I rushed over and checked my desk. Everything was still there. Laptop closed. Safe. I exhaled shakily. "How did she get in here?" I asked. "Oh," my mom said casually from the hallway. "She wanted to see her room." I thought it was fine. I locked the door again after that. Double-checked it. Every time I left. "You're so tense," my dad joked. "You need to relax." Relax. I tried explaining again, slower this time. About contracts. About invoices. about how one missed deadline could spiral into lost referrals. My mother listened with that polite smile she used when she'd already made up her mind. "You worry too much," she said. "Things like that don't just break." I wanted to scream, because things didn't just break. They broke when people ignored boundaries. They broke when warnings were brushed off. They broke when responsibility was replaced with indulgence. I stood there, looking at my locked door, feeling like the only adult in a house full of people who refused to take me seriously. And still, I never imagined they would unlock that door themselves. Not for her. Not against me. Not knowing exactly what it would cost. It happened on a Sunday morning. The kind of quiet morning my parents loved. Sunlight through the windows, coffee brewing, Sophie humming to herself on the living room floor while stacking her plastic blocks. I was in the kitchen pouring myself a mug, mentally running through my to-do list for the day. I had a deadline that night. A client waiting on a final cut. I remember thinking, if I can just get a solid 4 hours in, I'll be okay. Then I heard it. The soft click of a door opening. I froze. My bedroom door didn't creak. I'd oiled the hinges myself. That sound wasn't imagination, it was wrong. My heart started pounding as I stepped into the hallway. Sophie was standing there. In front of my room. My room. She was holding my laptop with both hands, the screen already open, the keyboard glowing faintly. In her other hand was a juice box, grape, I noticed absurdly, the straw punctured, liquid seeping down the side. For half a second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. "Sophie, no," I said sharply, moving toward her. She looked up at me, startled. The laptop tilted. Behind her, my mother sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. "It's fine," she said without looking up. "She just wants to watch cartoons." "She's not allowed in my room," I snapped. "Why is my door open?" No answer. Sophie plopped down on the floor with my laptop, pressing keys at random, giggling as windows popped up and disappeared. I lunged forward. "Please, give that to me," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. That's when it happened. The juice box slipped from her hand. Purple liquid poured straight onto the keyboard. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered violently, lines tearing across it like a dying heartbeat. A sharp electrical smell filled the air. And then, black. Silence. I stood there, staring, unable to move, unable to breathe. My hands felt numb. My ears rang. $3,800. My deadlines. My clients. My rent money. Gone. "Oh," my dad said from the doorway. "That's unfortunate. Unfortunate." My mother finally looked up from her phone. She glanced at the laptop, then at Sophie, who was now smearing juice across the screen with her fingers. "Well," she said lightly, "this is why I don't buy expensive things anymore." She laughed. Actually laughed. I felt something crack inside my chest. I picked up the laptop, water dripping onto the floor, my reflection warped and broken in the dark screen. My voice came out shaking. "You knew this was how I worked," I said. "You knew." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Accidents happen, Emily." My dad nodded in agreement. "You shouldn't have left it where a child could reach it." I looked at him, stunned. "It was in my locked room," I said slowly. "You had to unlock the door." Silence. Then my mother sighed, already annoyed. "Don't start," she said. "It's just a laptop. Just a laptop." In that moment, standing there with sticky fingers and a dead screen and my parents' indifference echoing in my ears, I realized something terrifying. They weren't going to take responsibility. Not for the laptop. Not for my work. Not for the damage they'd just allowed. And somehow, impossibly, they thought I was the problem. I carried the laptop into my room like it was something fragile and dead, water still dripping from the edge of the keyboard onto my wrist. I plugged it in, even though I already knew. Nothing. No light. No sound. Just a black screen reflecting my own stunned face. Behind me, I could hear my parents talking in low, casual voices, already moving on. I walked back into the living room with the laptop in my arms. "This can't be fixed," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm. Too flat. "I need it for work. I've already lost today's deadline." My mother crossed her arms. "You're overreacting." "I'm not," I said. "I just need you to help cover the cost." It was an accident, but it was preventable. My father let out a short laugh. "Emily, listen to yourself." I swallowed hard. It cost $3,800. That got their attention. For half a second. Then my mother shook her head. "That's absurd. No one pays that much for a computer." "I do," I said, "because it's my job." Laura had been quiet until then, leaning against the kitchen counter, watching. She finally spoke, her tone sharp and annoyed. "So, what, you expect Mom and Dad to write you a check because Sophie spilled juice?" "Yes," I said immediately. "Because you knew she wasn't allowed near it. Because my door was locked." My mother's eyes narrowed. You shouldn't have locked your door in the first place. That's not normal in a family home. You're blaming me? She sighed like I was exhausting her. Emily, don't be ridiculous. There it was again. Ridiculous. My dad nodded along. Accidents happen. This is what kids do. You learn to adapt. Adapt. I felt heat rush to my face. She didn't just trip, I said. You unlocked my door. You handed her something you knew I needed to survive. My mother's expression hardened. We are not punishing a child for being a child. And we are not going to set a precedent where Sophie feels guilty for an accident. I laughed then, short, hollow, disbelieving. So, I just absorbed the loss? Laura rolled her eyes. Maybe this is a sign you should get a more stable job. That did it. I felt something in me finally snap, not loud, not explosive, but sharp and final. The kind of break that doesn't heal the same way. I looked at all three of them, my parents, my sister, standing there united, protective, unbothered. They had already decided. Not only was my work not worth protecting, I wasn't worth choosing. I picked up my laptop, walked back to my room, and shut the door behind me. This time, I didn't bother locking it. I already knew locks didn't matter in a house where boundaries were optional and consequences were reserved for people like me. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They crept in quietly, the way real damage always does. That night, I sat on my bed with my dead laptop open in front of me, refreshing my email on my phone like maybe the screen would magically light back up if I stared long enough. It didn't. By midnight, I had no choice but to write to my client. I'm so sorry. There was an emergency. My equipment was damaged. I won't be able to deliver tonight. The reply came 15 minutes later. That's unfortunate. We're on a tight schedule. We'll need to move forward with someone else. Just like that, months of steady work disappeared. The next morning, I called a repair shop. They confirmed what I already knew. Liquid damage. Total loss.
No warranty. No merci.
I walked back into the kitchen where my parents were having breakfast, Sophie sitting between them, crumbs all over the table, happily swinging her legs. I lost a client, I said quietly. Because of this. My mother didn't even look up from her coffee. You'll find another one. Another one. I went back to my room and started packing. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just methodically. Clothes into bags. Hard drives into a backpack. My phone buzzed again. Another email. Then another. 2 more clients asking if I was still able to meet deadlines. One politely suggesting we pause collaboration for now. I watched my monthly income collapse in real time, each notification tightening the knot in my chest. By the 3rd day, I was sleeping on my friend Megan's couch. She listened quietly as I told her everything, about the laptop, about my parents laughing, about the word ridiculous. That's not ridiculous, she said immediately. That's cruel. I nodded, throat tight. When I went back to my parents' house to grab the last of my things, my father stopped me at the door. You're really going to hold a grudge over this? He asked. I stared at him, stunned. A grudge? I repeated. I lost my income. He sighed, already tired of the conversation. You're being dramatic, Emily. Family doesn't keep score like this. I almost laughed, because they weren't keeping score at all. They hadn't lost anything. Not a paycheck. Not a client. Not a single night of sleep. I had lost everything that mattered to me, and they still expected me to smile, adapt, and move on. That was when it finally sank in. This wasn't just about a laptop. This was about how easily they watched my life unravel and decided it was my responsibility to clean up the mess they allowed. I didn't plan to confront them again. Not at first. I told myself there was no point. I'd already seen how it ended, with dismissive sighs, indulgent smiles, and that quiet agreement between them that I was the problem for expecting accountability. But anger has a way of building pressure, and mine had nowhere to go. So a week later, when my mother texted, "Family dinner tonight. You should come." I went. The house looked the same. Warm lights.
Familiar smells.
Sophie running in circles while my parents laughed like nothing had happened. Like my life hadn't been knocked sideways in their living room. We sat down to eat. I didn't make it through the salad. I need to talk about the laptop, I said, my voice steady but tight. My father's fork paused midair. Emily, not this again. Yes, I said. This again. My mother set her glass down slowly. We've already discussed this.
No, irraplia.
You decided. You didn't discuss anything. Laura shifted in her chair, irritation flashing across her face. You're still on this? I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. I lost 3 clients, I said. I can't pay my rent next month. That laptop wasn't a luxury, it was my livelihood. My father leaned back, crossing his arms. And what do you want us to do about it now? I took a breath. I want you to admit you were wrong. And I want you to help me replace it. The silence that followed was heavy. My mother was the first to speak. We are not paying thousands of dollars because a child made a mistake. She didn't make a mistake, I snapped. You unlocked my door. You ignored every boundary I set. Susan's expression hardened. Do not raise your voice at me. I laughed then, sharp and bitter. You're right. Let's protect the child from consequences. Let's make sure she never feels uncomfortable. I'll just carry the damage. My father slammed his hand lightly on the table. That's enough. No, I said, standing now. What's enough is pretending this is normal. Laura scoffed. You're acting like we ruined your life. You did, I said quietly. That landed harder than shouting ever could. My mother stared at me like she didn't recognize the person in front of her. You are choosing money over family. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes.
No.
You're choosing comfort over fairness. You're choosing her over me. And you've been doing it for years. Sophie giggled at something on her tablet, oblivious. I gestured toward her. What are you teaching her? That other people absorb the consequences for her actions? That someone else always pays. My mother stood abruptly. This conversation is over. My father nodded. If you keep pushing this, you're going to damage your relationship with us. I stared at them, my heart hammering. That was the threat. Not concern for my future. Not regret for what I'd lost. Just a warning that if I didn't fall back in line, I'd be the one punished. I picked at my coat. I already know where I stand, I said. I just needed to hear you confirm it. No one stopped me as I walked out. And as the door closed behind me, something inside finally shifted. I stopped trying to win a fight that had been rigged from the start. I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. No calls.
No texts.
No check-ins. Just silence, thick and deliberate, like a punishment I was supposed to feel guilty for earning. At first, I waited. Then I stopped. The space did something unexpected. Without the constant pressure to explain myself, I could finally hear my own thoughts. And the loudest one was this. I had been begging people to treat me fairly who benefited from me being small. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. A group text. Mom, we need to clear the air. This has gone on long enough. Dad, you're tearing the family apart. Laura, Sophie keeps asking why Aunt Emily doesn't visit anymore. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking, not with fear this time, but with clarity. I typed. Deleted. Typed again. I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm stepping out of a situation where my work, my boundaries, and my livelihood weren't respected. My mother called immediately. I didn't answer. Another message popped up. Mom, so that's it? You're really choosing this hill to die on? I closed my eyes and breathed. You chose the hill. I just stopped standing at the bottom of it. A minute passed. Then another. Finally, Dad, you're being incredibly hurtful. I laughed, quietly, sadly. Hurtful was watching your parents laugh while your career went dark. Hurtful was being told your survival was ridiculous. I sent one last message. Until you can acknowledge what happened and take responsibility, I'm done discussing it. Then, I muted the thread. That night, I sat on Megan's couch with my laptop, borrowed, temporary, imperfect, and finished a small project for a new client. It paid less than I was used to, but when I hit send, something inside me loosened. I wasn't powerless. I was just done asking for permission to matter. For the first time since the laptop died, I slept through the night. Not because things were fixed, but because I finally understood this truth. Sometimes the real breaking point isn't when something is destroyed. It's when you realize no one plans to help you rebuild, and you decide to do it anyway. It took 4 months to feel like myself again. Not the old version. The one who kept explaining, softening, compromising, hoping someone would finally say, "You're right." That version didn't survive what happened. I bought a new laptop on a payment plan that made my stomach twist every time the notification hit. I worked late nights on Megan's couch, then early mornings at a borrowed desk. I took smaller jobs.
Cheaper jobs.
Jobs I would have turned down before, because pride is expensive, and I couldn't afford it anymore. Slowly, things stabilized. One client recommended me to another. Then another. The calendar stopped looking empty. The panic eased into something manageable. I was rebuilding, not because anyone helped me, but because I had no other choice. My parents eventually reached out again. A neutral text. A holiday invitation.
No apology. No acknowledgement.
Just an unspoken expectation that time should erase everything. I declined. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just firmly. Because I'd learned something the hard way. Forgiveness without accountability is just permission for it to happen again. Sophie would grow up. She would forget the laptop, the juice, the chaos. But I wouldn't forget how easily my parents dismissed my work, my boundaries, my survival because it was more convenient than admitting they were wrong. They didn't just let their precious granddaughter destroy my laptop. They showed me exactly how replaceable they thought I was. And in losing their approval, I gained something I'd never had before. Clarity, self-respect, and the courage to stop shrinking for people who were comfortable watching me break. The laptop was expensive, but the lesson cost more, and it was worth every penny.